What's up? I'm Vin, and today I want to take a 5th grade math practice test. So we have this first question here. We're finding the volume in cubic centimeters of this box, which is a right rectangular prism. So the volume of a right rectangular prism we could find by doing the length times the width times the height. So we just identify these three things here. The length in this case is going to be 9 centimeters. So that's this distance here. The width going across is 5 centimeters, and the height is 10 centimeters. So now we just have to multiply these three things together, and we're going to do 9 centimeters times 5 centimeters times 10 centimeters. Now, if you're allowed to use a calculator, great. If you're not allowed to use a calculator, it's easier to multiply 9 times 5 first. So when I'm doing this in my head, I'm thinking 9 times 5 is 45. And if you don't know the trick, 9 times 5, 1 less than 5 is 4, and then 4 plus blank equals 9. That blank has to be 5. So that's a little shortcut for your times tables. So what that tells us here is that we have 9 times 5 is 45. And then we're doing 45 times 10. And anytime you multiply something by 10, you could just add a 0 at the end if it's a whole number. So, and the units here are cubic centimeters. So we're just going to write centimeters with a little 3 above like this. So now we just multiply 45 times 10 is 450. So this is 450 cubic centimeters. That's the volume of this rectangular prism. So choice D. For question 2, we're adding these fractions together. But remember, the only time you could add fractions together is when they have common denominators. So it's easier to take the first fraction with a denominator of 10 and make it have a matching denominator of 100. So we're going to multiply this first fraction by 10 over 10, and we're going to get 2 times 10 is 20 over 10 times 10 is 100. So that tells us that we could rewrite this expression here. Instead of 2 over 10, we're going to write this as 20 over 100 plus 6 over 100. Now we're able to add these two together because their denominators match. So we have 100 as our common denominator, and then our new numerator is going to be 20 plus 6, which is 26 out of 100. Now, this is going to be our answer choice, choice D, but I think this answer is a little bit sloppy. Get in the habit of reducing your fractions. So 26 over 100, you could divide the top and bottom by 2. And if you divide the top and bottom by 2, that's going to reduce to 13 over 50. So this would be a better way to write our answer, but we're matching it to the multiple choice answer choices, so choice D. So for question 3, for this word problem, we have Mark sold this much lemonade, and Reagan sold 2/3 as much as Mark. But the actual question is, how much lemonade in gallons did Reagan sell? So let's convert Mark's amount to an improper fraction. So he sold 2 7/8 gallons. So to convert this to an improper fraction, we multiply, which will abbreviate, and then we add. Okay, so our denominator is not going to change. This is going to stay with a denominator of 8, but our numerator is going to be 8 times 2, and then plus 7. So that's going to give us 16 plus 7, which is 23 over 8. So this is how many gallons of lemonade Mark sold. So then to find out how many gallons Reagan sold, and we're going to work this out, 23 over 8 times 2/3, because Reagan sold 2/3 as much as Mark. So we multiply these. And a nice little trick for this is we could just multiply 23 times 2 over 8 times 3. But what I like to do is I think of the fraction 2 over 8, and if we reduce 2 over 8 by dividing the top and bottom by 2, this reduces to 1/4. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to reduce 2 over 8 to 1/4 and then multiply. 23 times 1 is 23 over 4 times 3 is 12. So now this part you could use mental math for when you're actually dividing, because we have to convert our answer back to a mixed number. When we're doing 23 divided by 12, 23 divided by 12 is equal to 1, but there's a remainder of 11. And that has to do with the fact that if I list the multiples of 12, we have 12, 24, 36, 48, and so on. So 23 is not quite a multiple of 12. It's 1 short, which means we would have 11 left over. So this is 1, remainder 11, and we're dividing by 12. So that's how I know this is going to be choice B. For question 4, we want to know which point on the number line represents the value of 0.75. And notice we're starting at 0 and we're stopping at 1. So there's a few ways to think of 0.75. And what we could do for this is write it as a fraction. This is 75 hundredths. And this, if we divide the top and bottom by 25, this fraction will reduce to 3/4. So you want to think of 3/4 as many ways as possible, but one way that's particularly helpful for this question is that on a line segment, 3/4 we could think of as we cut the line segment in half, and then we cut each of those halves in half, and 3/4 is going to take us 1, 2, 3. It's going to take us this far along that line segment. So notice here from 0 to 1 we have another line segment, but what we're going to do is we're going to cut this in half. And then what we're going to do from here is we're going to cut this segment in half, and we're going to cut this segment in half. And now apply that same visual that we had here in this thought process, that 3/4 is 1, 2, 3 of these segments here. And notice we're stopping at point C. So that's going to be our answer choice. So question 5 is all number sense. We're just trying to see which of these comparisons or inequalities here are true. So when I look at the first answer choice, 2.919 versus 2.94, well, what I think of right away when I'm comparing these two numbers, and I can see right away this is not the answer. I'm just going to throw in an extra 0 at the end. So the 2's in front of the decimals match, so I could ignore these. So now I just think of, I'm comparing the number 919 to 940, and 940 is the bigger number. So when you draw your inequality, I like to imagine almost like a Pac-Man here, and the Pac-Man wants to eat the bigger amount. But the 0.940 is bigger than the 0.919, so this is not our answer choice, because you see the Pac-Man would be going this way, and it would be eating the smaller number when it wants to eat the bigger number. So then we go to choice B, and choice B is also not true, because 0.99 is very close to 1. 0.569 is further away from 1, so this is the bigger number. So the Pac-Man here is eating the smaller number, so this is not true. So that one's out. Now the next one here, this looks true. Now, how do I know that one's true just by glancing at it? Well, we have 1 point, and I'm going to add an extra 0. We have 270 after the decimal, greater than 1.189. So the fact that the 1 matches in front, I could ignore this 1, and now I just think of it as comparing the number 270 to 189, and 270 is definitely greater than 189. So this is definitely choice C. For question 6, we have Betty has 3 cats and 4 dogs, and she feeds each of them 1 scoop of food twice a day. All right, so there's a lot to keep track of here, but 3 cats, 4 dogs, and they're all basically getting 2 scoops of food a day. So which expression can be used to show how many scoops Betty feeds her pets in one day? So just looking at this, we have 3 plus 4 pets, and they're each getting 2 cups of food. So I'm just thinking distributive property here. And this would give us 2 times 3 plus 2 times 4. So this is just my thought process before I look at any answer choices. And now when I look, even if I wanted to work this out, 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 times 4 is 8. So Betty is serving 14 scoops of food for all of her pets on this particular day, or on each day. So when we look at the answer choices, 2 times 3 times 4 is no good. This would be too much, okay, because we're not going to multiply the number of pets that she has together. We would add these two together to see how many pets Betty has in total, and each pet is getting 2 scoops of food. So A is out. 2 times 3 plus 4. The problem with this is we have to add the number of pets together, but here we're just multiplying the first set of pets by 2. So we multiply the number of cats by 2, which accounts for how many scoops of food they get, but then plus 4 just means the dogs only get 1 scoop of food each. So this one is not it. And you could even see this is not going to match up with the actual amount, which is 14. So that one's out. 2 plus 3 plus 4 is no good because we need to be multiplying together. So this we would need to be multiplying, so this one's out. So this has to be the answer choice here. 2 times 3 plus 4. This is the total number of pets, and each pet is getting 2 scoops of food. So this is going to be the answer to question 6. So for this question here, we want to find the volume in cubic feet of the rectangular prism. And notice here that each of these cubes are unit cubes, and we're measuring in feet. So once again, volume is equal to length times width times height. So what we have to do is count the number of boxes across. So we're going across 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going 4 feet across. It's going backwards 1, 2, 3. So 3 feet backwards, and it's going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now if you define each of these here, we have the length is, let's say, equal to 4 feet. The width going back is 3 feet, and the height is equal to 6 feet. And this order is forgiving because when we multiply all of these together, the order in which you multiply doesn't matter because multiplication is commutative. So now we just multiply these together. We have 4 feet times 3 feet, and then we're multiplying by 6 feet. So when I do this part in my head, what I do first is I multiply any pair of numbers, and let's say I do 4 times 3. So I do 4 times 3 is equal to 12, and then I do 12 times 6, and 12 times 6 is equal to 72. So our volume here is going to be 72 cubic feet. This is how we express cubic feet, but this is going to match up with choice D. Question 8 is order of operations, and it's very helpful to know this phrase, PEMDAS. Some people remember it as please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and what this tells us is the order to carry out our operations. And first is parentheses. So I'm focusing in on this parentheses here, and notice within the parentheses we have multiplication and subtraction. Multiplication comes before subtraction. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do 3 times 4, which is 12, and then subtract the 6, plus 4 times 2, but we're still stuck with these parentheses here, so we're going to simplify the parentheses first. So we'll do that in the next line here. 12 minus 6 is 6. We have 6 plus 4 times 2. Now out of everything we have left, we have multiplication and addition. We're going to do the multiplication first. So we're doing 4 times 2 is 8, and now we have 8 plus 6. This is the only operation left, and that's going to equal 14. Question 9, we have Miss Reed making salad dressing with oil and vinegar. So she's combining 8 fluid ounces of oil and 3 fluid ounces of vinegar to make one batch. So we'll just write this out here. One batch, and we're focusing on the total amount of ounces. So that's 8 ounces of oil plus 3 ounces of vinegar, and that's 11 ounces in total. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to see how many ounces are there in 3 batches. And 3 batches is really just going to take the 11 ounces that we had from before and multiply by 3. And that's going to give us 33 ounces of oil and vinegar. But we have to convert this to cups. So we have to know that 1 cup is equal to 8 ounces. So then if we want to convert 33 ounces into cups, then we're going to take 33 and we're going to divide by 8. And that's going to tell us how many cups we have. Now, if this is confusing, how do we know to divide by 8 and not multiply by 8? And this is just a little bit of common sense that we could use for conversions like this. Well, notice 1 cup compared to 8 ounces is that the number 8 is bigger than the number 1. So when we convert from ounces back to cups, we know that the number in front of cups has to be a smaller number. So dividing 33 by 8 will make the number smaller. But if we multiply by 8, that would make the number in front of cups way bigger. So once again, the number in front of cups is smaller than the number in front of ounces. So if we're going from ounces to cups, we would divide by 8. So now we just have to work this out. 33 divided by 8. 8 goes into 33 4 times, and 4 times 8 is 32. So we have a remainder of 1, and that remainder of 1, since we're dividing by 8, is going to go under a denominator of 8. So our answer is going to be choice D, 4 1/8 cups. Question 10, we're finding the area of this rectangle, and area is equal to length times width. So what we're going to do here is we're going to convert these mixed numbers into improper fractions. So 6 4/5, we're going to convert to an improper fraction by, remember, we multiply 6 times 5, and then we add the numerator to that product and divide by the old denominator. So this is going to work out to 34 over 5. And next, we're going to convert 4 3/4 to an improper fraction using the same technique. So we're doing 4 times 4 and then plus 3 divided by the old denominator of 4. And this is going to give us 16 plus 3, which is 19 over 4. And now we're using the formula area is equal to length times width. So the area is equal to the length, which let's call that 34 over 5. and then we're multiplying by 19 over 4. Now just know the way we express multiplication, we could put the times symbol between them, or we could put two parentheses like this, and that means multiply. All right, but if you prefer the times symbol, then put the times symbol there. So what we could do ahead of time is we could reduce what we have. So 34 divided by 4, I think of that on the side, 34 over 4, we could divide the top and bottom by 2. Here like this, and that's going to make 17 over 2. So I could simplify this a little bit to 17 over 2 like that. And now what we want to do from here is we're going to multiply 17 times 19. So I'll do that on the side. 19 times 17. And we're doing long multiplication. 7 times 9 is 63. We carry the 6. 7 times 1 is 7. Plus 6 is 13. And now we're multiplying by 1. That should be easy. 1 times 9 and 1 times 1. So we do 3 plus 0. And then we have 3 plus 9 is 12. Carry the 1. So we have 323 in our numerator. And we have 323 over 5 times 2 is 10. So now if we're writing this as a decimal, this would be 32.3. However, it looks like all of our answers here are back in mixed number form. So I'm going to divide once more. 10 goes into 323. So 10 goes into 30 3 times. And if we do 3 times 10, we're subtracting 30 and we have a remainder of 2. And now we carry down the 3. 10 goes into 23 twice. 2 times 10 is 20. When we subtract, we're left with 3. And our remainder of 3, we're dividing by 10. We have 32 and 3/10. And 32 and 3/10 is not showing up as an answer choice. And that means that some other technique was employed here. It looks like the method they wanted us to do was to multiply 34 times 19, then divide by 5 times 4. But that's not going to be a problem here because we could see that 32 and 3/10 is going to match choice D because all we have to do is just multiply this part by 2 over 2. And this is going to make 32, and 3 times 2 is 6. Over 10 times 2 is 20. So definitely choice D. So for question 10, we have to know that 1 kilometer, and I'll abbreviate kilometer with km here, is equal to 1,000 meters. Okay, the prefix K, kilo, just stands for 1,000. So 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. And Ed hiked 3 kilometers on Saturday and swam 2 kilometers on Sunday. So in total, that's 5 kilometers of hiking and swimming. So we want to know how many total meters did Ed hike and swim on Saturday and Sunday. So we're going to take 5 kilometers and we're going to convert it back to meters. So same idea as before. The $1 million question that people will struggle with here is, do we multiply, which I'll abbreviate, or do we divide? Okay, that's going to be the dilemma. And here, once again, the number in front of kilometers is tiny compared to the number in front of meters. So when we convert our answer to meters, we need a much bigger number. So multiply or divide, well, multiplying by 1,000 is going to make the number in front way bigger. So we're doing 1,000 times 5, which is 5,000. So we're going to have 5,000 meters. Once again, we wouldn't fall in this trap of saying 5 divided by 1,000 because we'd have 0.005. And once again, that wouldn't make sense because when we have this unit comparison here, 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. The number in front of meters is way bigger than the number in front of kilometers. So we're going to multiply by 1,000. 5,000 meters is our answer, choice C. Question 12 is a really nice question, and it shows that long division is actually the distributive property in disguise. And a lot of people, if I ask them a question like, what's 1 over 7 plus 2 over 7? A lot of people could pretty quickly say this is going to be 3 over 7. All right, let's just make that a little neater. 3 over 7. The in-between math that you do is you add the numerators and you keep the denominator and you get here. And we're so used to going from left to right that we almost never go backwards from right to left. But that's exactly what we want to do here. So 1,284 divided by 4 is the same thing as 1,284 over 4. And let's say for some bizarre reason, I want to break up the numerator into 1,200 plus 84 over 4. So you see, this is like us starting from the right and going to this middle step here. But now I want to go another step further, and I want to write this as 1,200 over 4 plus 84 over 4. So you see, it's like I'm taking an addition of fractions question and I'm doing it backwards. But now just think about, what does this mean? Well, this translates to 1200 divided by 4 plus 84 divided by 4. And that's why this is going to match up with choice C. For question 13, we need the volume of a rectangular prism formula again. Length times width times height. And we have to label the dimensions here. We're going across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going back 1, 2, 3. And we're going up 1, 2, 3, 4. But we want to find out which of these expressions cannot be used to determine the volume. So looking at choice A, 12 times 6. Well, first thing I notice is that there's a 6 here. So if I do volume equals 6 times 3 times 4, I want to use the associative property here. And I'm going to group together 3 times 4. So I want to multiply those two first. I'm going to get 6 times 12, and by commutativity of multiplication, that's the same thing as 12 times 6. So choice A is out. This one is not going to be our answer choice. Choice B is also going to be out, because if I wrote this as 6 times 3 and then times 4, you could see when we multiply 6 times 3, that's 18, and 18 times 4 is the same thing as what we have in choice B here. Now 6 times 3 times 4 is us just writing the volume out without any parentheses. So this is out. So just by process of elimination, choice D has to be our answer. But let's see what the problem with that is that our volume is equal to 6 times 3 times 4. So why can't this be true? Why can't it be this? Well, 6 times 4 times 6, there's no way that this is going to equal 6 times 3 times 4. And the problem with that is that if we get rid of one of the 6's, 4 times 6 is 24, and 24 is not equal to 3 times 4, which is 12. So that's why choice D is no good. For question 14, we're rounding, and it's all about having a nice number line in your head. So I think about, if I'm rounding 15.74 to the nearest whole number, first off, we're between 15 and 16. And I look at the halfway point, 15.5. So 15.74 is somewhere around here. So 15.74 is between 15.5 and 16. And what we're asking ourselves is this number, 15.74, closer to 16, or is it closer to 15? And in this case, it's very visually obvious that this is closer to 16. So we're going to round to 16. But if you don't actually want to draw the number line out, it's better to just understand the basic technique. And the basic technique is that when you look at this number, you're rounding to the nearest whole number. So we're rounding to the nearest digit right to the left of the decimal. So we look to the right, and I see a 7. And the rule for rounding is that when the digit is greater than or equal to 5, which this is, we round up. So we round up, so this entire number rounds to 16. What could have happened is, let's say in another practice test that we had something like 15.49. If we were rounding to the nearest whole number, in this case, notice to the right of the 5 is a 4, and 4 is less than 5. So anytime the digit that you're considering is less than 5, this tells you to round down. And if we round down, we would round 15.49 down to 15, and it would be choice B. But for this one, we're going with choice C. Question 15, we have another word problem, and Jack puts 1/3 of a pound of birdseed into his feeder every time he fills it. How many times can Jack fill his bird feeder with 4 pounds of birdseed? So here it's a division problem. We're doing 4 pounds divided by 1/3 of a pound. Okay, because if he has 4 pounds in total, and each time he wants to feed birds, he uses 1/3, we're dividing to see how many times Jack could do this. And there's a nice technique for dividing fractions, and this is the abbreviation for it, KCF, keep, change, flip. And the way we do this is that we keep the stuff on top, so we're keeping the 4, then we change the operation from division to multiplication, and then we flip the bottom fraction. So this is the one that we're going to flip. So we're going to flip this. And by flip, the actual math word for it is take the reciprocal. So now we just simplify this. This is 4 times 3 divided by 1 is 3. And 4 times 3 is 12. So Jack can fill the bird feeder 12 times. For question 16, Carlos is making 1 pound of snack mix using 3 ingredients, nuts, raisins, and cereal. And the list so far just shows how much of 2 of the ingredients are being used, so nuts and raisins. So we want to know how many pounds of cereal are in this particular mix. So the idea for this question is that there are 3 ingredients, and so far we know there's 1/3 of a pound of nuts. Then we know that there's 2/5 of a pound of raisins, but then we have to know how many pounds of cereal are there. And what we do know is there's a total of 1 pound of snack mix. So the idea for this question is we should add these 2 fractions together and see how much of the fraction is missing to make the fraction whole, and that's going to be our answer. So the first fraction, we need common denominators, so we're going to multiply by 5/5, and the second fraction, we're going to multiply by 3/3. And that's going to allow us to find a common denominator for the first 2 fractions. Now we do 1 times 5 is 5, over 3 times 5 is 15, plus 2 times 3 is 6, over 5 times 3 is 15. And then plus the mystery amount of cereal equals 1. And now when we add these together, 5 plus 6 is 11. So we have 11/15 plus some mystery amount is equal to 1. Well, if you just think about this, we don't actually have to draw the pie chart out. But if 11/15 is already accounted for, how much is missing to make 1? And the missing amount here would be 4/15. Because you see, if we do 11/15 plus 4/15, that would make 15/15, and that would make the fraction whole and equal 1. So the mystery amount is choice C, 4/15. So question 17, we have Tara lives 3/4 of a mile from the park, and Nick Hill lives 6 2/3 times as far as Tara from the park. And how far in miles does Nick Hill live from the park? Okay, so for this one, we have to multiply 3/4 times 6 2/3. But once again, we have to convert this mixed number into an improper fraction. So for this one, we'll just do that on the side. We have 6 2/3, so we're converting this, is equal to 6 times 3 plus 2 over 3. And this is going to give us 18 plus 2, which is 20/3. Remember, order of operations, we're going to multiply before we add. Don't do 6 times 3 plus 2. 6 times 5, 30 would give you something incorrect, and it would probably show up here as a distraction. So now we're multiplying 3/4 times, we converted 6 2/3 to 20/3. And remember, it's much easier to cross cancel instead of just multiplying everything across. So 3 divided by 3 is equal to 1. So these just cancel out and make 1. 20 divided by 4 is 5, so these cancel out and make 5. And now what we have is 1 times 5 is 5, over, technically there's a 1 left over. 1 times 1 is 1, so this just works out to 5. If you want, you could just do 3 times 20 is 60, divided by 4 times 3 is 12, and 60 divided by 12 is also 5. But I think it's cooler to just cancel things out like this, so definitely choice B. We have which statement describes the product of the expression 5 times a half? Well, when I look at this, 5 times a half has the same meaning to me as taking half of 5. And if you have trouble taking half of 5, one way of doing this, if you have trouble dividing odd numbers by 2, is you could think of 5 is equal to 4 plus 1. So if I want to divide 5 by 2, I could divide 4 by 2 and 1 by 2 and add them. So 5 divided by 2 is equal to 4 divided by 2 is 2, plus a half. So half of 5 is equal to 2.5, which I could write this as 2.5. We could write this as an improper fraction. But now I'll read through the answer choices. The product is less than a half. That is not true. 2.5 is not less than 1/2. And 1/2, we could also say, is 0.5. This is not a true statement. That's a false statement, so that's not our answer. It is greater than 5. 2.5 is greater than 5. That is also a false statement. So this one is out. The answer is between 5 and 6. That's not true. 2.5, this is between 2 and 3. So if we change it to 2 and 3, then it would be correct, but choice C is out. By process of elimination, it has to be D, but now let's just read through this. that our answer, 2.5, is between 1/2 and 5. That is true. Okay, because if we have 0, 1, you see 1/2 is here, and then we have 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1/2 is here. 5 is here, and our answer to that question was 2.5, and 2.5 is definitely between those two. So definitely choice D. So for this question here, we're dividing fractions, and we have 1/7 divided by 5 over, and I'm going to write this as 5 divided by 1. And the reason being is that, once again, I want to use that technique, keep, change, flip, for dividing fractions. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the first thing. We're going to keep 1/7. Then we're going to change the operation here. So we're going to change this to multiplication. And then we're going to flip. So we're going to flip this. Okay, we're going to flip this to 1/5. And now when you multiply fractions, you're doing the product of the numerators over the product of the denominators. So we're doing 1 times 1 is 1, over 7 times 5 is 35. So 1/35 is our answer, choice B. For question 20, we have Cole with a rectangular garden. We have the area of the garden, and we have the length of the garden. And we want to know what is the width in meters of the garden. So just know the area of a rectangle is length times width. So what we have so far is that the area is equal to 16.02 square meters, and we have the length is equal to 4.5 meters. And we want to find what is the width. Now, if we're not careful here, someone who just rushes through this might just multiply 16.02 by 4.5. The problem with that is you're going to get an answer really, really big that's not going to match any of these. So what we actually need to do to solve for the width is we're thinking 4.5 times blank equals this. So to find that blank, we could do 16.02 divided by 4.5. Now, one thing I'm anticipating already is that if we go to do 4.5 dividing into 16.02, all these decimals get kind of annoying to deal with. So one thing that we could do is that we could multiply the top and bottom by 10. And anytime you multiply a decimal by 10, the decimal moves one place to the right. So this would become, I'll write this down here, 16, and the decimal is going to move to the right. So instead of 16, we're going to have 160.2 divided by 45. And this is going to be easier to deal with because when you're dividing decimals, it's easier to turn the divisor into a whole number. So you have to just move each of those decimals to the right one. So now we're going to be doing instead, and I'll write this a little bit higher so we have space, we're going to do 160.2 divided by 45. Now, just looking at this, if I count by 45s, I have 45, 90, 135, and then the next one here, if I go up another 45, would be 180. And you could accomplish that by just doing 45 plus 45 a bunch of times. So I could get as close as 45 times 3, which gives us 135. And when we subtract here, we could just do the long subtraction. We're going to borrow a 5 here. 10 minus 5 is 5. 5 minus 3 is 2. And then we carry this down. And since we're carrying this down and the decimal is here, we're going to throw the decimal up top. And right away, I could see that this is going to be choice A. You could use common sense here and use approximation techniques because this is multiple choice. And just think here that if I have 3 point something, this is the only answer with a 3 in it, so it has to be A. But I'll go ahead and simplify the rest of this here. So notice this was 45 times 4. If I go another 45, I'm at 225. If I add another 45, now I'm at 270, which is past 252. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you see the 5 is starting to match what we have after this. And 45 times 5 is 225. Like this, we subtract and we borrow. 12 minus 5 is 7. 4 minus 2 is 2. And then we could add a 0 just to bring down like this. And now 45 goes into 270 exactly 6 times. So when we subtract 270, we have no remainder. So if you could use a calculator, you're done in moments. If you use common sense, you're done a little bit quicker. But it's cool to see how to do this the whole way through. Definitely choice A for 20. All right, question 21. The school raised a total of this much money to purchase new books, and the money raised will be shared equally among 8 different classrooms. What is the total amount each classroom will receive? So if it's shared equally, that means we could divide. And it's shared equally amongst 8 classes, so we're going to divide this by 8. 8 goes into 16 twice. We do 2 times 8 is 16. It divides evenly, so there's no remainder. we carry down the 4, and now 8 goes into 4 0 times. 0 times 8 is 0. When we subtract 4 minus 0, we get 4. Now we could bring down this 8. And 8 goes into 48 exactly 6 times. 6 times 8 is 48. And multiply, subtract, it goes in evenly. So choice A. For question 22, we have a line plot, and it's tracking how much cereal Cheyenne ate in 5 days. And we want to know the total number of cups of cereal that Cheyenne ate in 5 days. So we're just going to record this out the long way. So Cheyenne ate 1/4 of a cup, and then ate another 1/4 of a cup. So that's 2 marks for 1/4. And then on, let's say, the 3rd day, Cheyenne had 1/2. The 4th day, she had another 1/2 cup. And then on the 5th day, let's say she had 3/4. This is not necessarily the order in which she had it, but this is just to get the problem going here. So now we just have to add these 5 fractions together. But the way we would do this is make groups that equal 1. So notice 1/2 plus 1/2, that's equal to 1. And then if we group these two together, 1/4 plus 3/4, I just think of that over here, 1/4 plus 3/4 is equal to 4/4, and that's also equal to 1. So these two together are also going to equal 1, and then just think about the only one that's left that didn't group with anything is 1/4. So when you add this stuff together, this is going to give us 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, plus the 4th is equal to 2 and 1/4. So definitely choice D. All right, question 23, we want the total volume in cubic inches of this tower that Lana built, and it's 2 blocks, which are rectangular prisms. So once again, volume of a rectangular prism is length times width times height, but we're doing 2 of them. So here, we'll do the first one, we'll color code here in purple, and then the second one we'll color code in blue. So the total volume, we're going to say, is equal to, and now we're color coding here, the volume of the first one, we're doing 4 inches times 10 inches times 2 inches. Okay, so that would be the length times width times height in no particular order. Remember, when you're multiplying, multiplication is commutative, so the order is not important. Now, the volume of the second block we're going to get, and we're going to write that out right next to this product here. So we have 2 inches times 5 inches times 4 inches. Okay, so when we want to find the total volume, we have to do the volume of the first block plus the volume of the second block. And now we just work this out. Volume equals, and for this one, I would do 4 times 2 is 8. So I would multiply these two together. 8, and then 8 times 10 is 80. So this is 80 cubic inches plus, and for this one, I would do 2 times 5 is 10, and then 10 times 4 is 40. So we have 40 cubic inches, and then how many cubic inches do we have in total? We have 80 cubic inches plus 40 cubic inches. That's 120 cubic inches. If you have trouble doing that kind of stuff in your head, I just think about, if I'm doing 80 plus 40 in my head, I'm really just doing 8 plus 4 is 12, and then I'm tacking on a 0 at the end. So a 12, but I have a 0 at the end, so 120. Definitely choice D. Okay, well, this is going to conclude this video on this 5th grade practice math test. If this video was helpful, please like and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel. And if you got any requests, just leave the topics you want me to cover in the comment section below. And thanks for watching.